Welcome to Planning Ahead with CMS. In the last episode, we talked about the residential use classifications and touched on affordable housing. In this episode, we're going to zoom in on the key policies that set out how the government intends to deliver affordable housing in the coming year and what this means for developers and investors alike. So let's start with national policy. In England and Wales, the National Planning Policy Framework sets out the general principles and expectations for the provision of affordable housing. It states that local policy should identify the size, type and tenure of housing needed to meet the needs of different groups of people in the local community, and the planning decisions at a local planning authority level should ensure that at least 10% of all homes on major development sites are affordable. In Scotland and Northern Ireland, there are similar but distinct policies and guidance on affordable housing, which reflect the devolved powers and responsibilities of those governments and local authorities. Outside of London, local authority policy varies a lot in terms of the quantum of housing required and the need for viability reviews and the types of housing developments that are caught by affordable housing requirements. In London, the picture's quite detailed and affordable housing policy is pretty sophisticated. So, the framework for the affordable housing policy in London is set out in the London Plan. This is because the delivery of affordable housing is seen to be a key strategic issue that was identified as early as 2012, but most recently in the 2017 London Housing Market Assessment. They said that approximately 65% of London's need for new housing is for affordable housing. So, what does the London Plan say? It sets a strategic target of 50% of all new homes to be affordable and expect each of the 32 London boroughs to set out their own local targets and thresholds for affordable housing provision within their local plans. This should be based on local evidence of need and the viability of provision. The London Plan contains detailed requirements for the delivery of affordable housing for different types of residential development. For example, the levels required for build to rent, student accommodation and co-living are all different. So you might have heard the terms the fast track and viability tested route when people have been talking about affordable housing. The fast track route is designed to encourage developers to offer at least 35% of their proposed developments as affordable housing stock, and this is without taking into account any public subsidy that may be available. The big benefit to this route is that a fast-tracked application doesn't need to provide detailed viability assessment information at the application stage. It's also not subject to a late-stage viability review, which means that the developer would need potentially to contribute more money towards affordable housing later in the evolution of the development. However, the requirement for an early-stage viability review will be triggered if the development hasn't substantially commenced within 2 years of the planning permission being granted. This means that at this date, if the financials of the development are assessed and it's realised that more housing could be provided, the developer could be required to provide this on site. A viability assessment is a financial appraisal that shows whether a development scheme can afford to deliver the required level of affordable housing. This takes into account build costs, land values, and the risks associated with building and selling a new development scheme. If developers cannot meet the 35% threshold, or if they propose a different tenure mix or off-site provision of affordable housing that doesn't match what the plan says, they have to go down the viability assessment route. This viability tested route requires a detailed assessment to be undertaken and a review mechanism to ensure that any uplift in the value of a development is shared with the local authority to provide more affordable housing. This assessment is then carefully scrutinised by the local authority to make sure that the development assessment of the quantum of affordable housing that can be delivered is correct. Often the local authority will employ a third-party independent consultant to check a developer's calculations. That's all for this episode of Planning Ahead with CMS. Thank you for listening and stay tuned for the next episode.